We're now going to Nairobi, to Kenya, for my next guest. Really very excited to have Jeremiah Ochieng join us today from d.light. When I first heard the story about d.light, it was really, for me, very inspirational, and it made me realize how I take certain things for granted and how my children and my family take a lot of things for granted. So d.light is actually quite literally an illuminating company. It's a brilliant company. And Jeremiah, welcome to the summit.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Fantastic, and thank you for joining us. So Jeremiah, could you tell us a bit about the inspirational work that d.light is doing?
Yeah, sure. Briefly, so d.light is basically focusing on solar home systems, so providing lighting and energy, mostly to bottom of the pyramid, if you like, people who are off grid, and largely in the emerging markets. And the business model that we have is where we allow people to pick and go away with our solar home systems on credit. So they then after that pay a small fee, like of 20 US cents per day, and they're able then to enjoy lights until they pay off the device. We have recently just celebrated the milestone of impacting 100 million lives since the business started. But we are continuing to focus on impacting more lives, and our next target is to impact 1 billion lives in the next 10 years.
Fantastic, thanks Jeremiah. And this was what really struck me, was that you're providing solar lighting to some of the most impoverished people, and I know, my children don't have to worry about whether they've got lighting in order to study, but I know in a lot of countries, children aren't actually able to get hold of a reliable source of light, and the kerosene lamps and things that they're using are not ideal. So I think it's great that you guys are doing this work. Can you share with the audience some of the business challenges that you have at d.light?
Yes, just from the opening just made, we are working with people who are at the bottom of the pyramid, people who are not necessarily in employment, and they are also in the very rural areas. What that means is that these are people with no records when it comes to credit. Some also don't even have KYC information. And we are providing credit to them. What that means from a business perspective, you can imagine, is the amount of risk that the business is exposed to. So we have to gather as much data as we can to be able to effectively serve these customers, but also mitigate the risks that we have, working with this sector of the population. So what we need to do is to ensure that we have lots and lots of data. Now, the business challenge here is when you have all this data, bringing that data together and analyzing and making sense of it is a huge business challenge.
And Jeremiah, what sort of data sources are you bringing in?
So we, for you to basically make sense of this, for it to be workable, we use our own internal data, so data that we generate from our point of sale systems, from our credit systems, and from our CRM systems and call center. But we also gather data from the government, because that's the demographic kind of data is what can help you to know which are the most deserving areas, which areas, say, are able to pay, because there's certain areas have a cyclic way of getting money. So, for example, they are farmers, so their income is very seasonal. So you need to bring all this data together, and you need to make sure that you're able to correlate it, make sense of it, and effectively then work with these customers and effectively serve them.
And Jeremiah, you mentioned one of the use cases is knowing your customer and also trying to do the credit management. Are there any other use cases that you were looking at as part of your project?
So, like I say, planning your go-to market, planning new products. For example, there's certain areas which just need a spotlight. They have like very basic requirements, but also you need to understand once you give them that basic requirement of lighting, people tend to want something else. So maybe they may want to upgrade to get a radio or a mobile phone, or a home system that now powers, lights more than one room and that kind of thing. So you need to understand that kind of customer journey as well. And what helps you to do that is data. You need to get all that data. You need to basically understand how they are using the systems, how are they using the products, are they satisfied, any feedback, and so on and so forth. So quite a lot of use cases in that particular context.
Great. And can you summarize the solution just for the audience that you chose?
Yeah, so we chose, so basically, if you look at what I've just talked about, we used to get so much data. What was happening was that every morning we needed our management needed to look at this data to make decisions, very critical on a daily basis. But what then we would have was we had a lot of people. So basically we put people in, a lot of resources to try and crunch this data on a daily basis. In one country alone, and we're operating in all over the world. In one country alone, for example, in Kenya, where there's a lot of business, we had like 16 people whose work was just to bring in this data together and try and make sense out of it. So we ended up choosing Oracle Autonomous Data Warehouse, we looked at many other solutions, but we wanted to look at one which was easier to deploy and one-stop solution. So we ended up with the ADW.
Okay, great. And did you include any other solutions? Was it purely ADW? I'm just trying to remember the solutions. You bought Analytics Cloud as well, didn't you, I think?
Yeah, so basically so just to give you some context in terms of how I was looking at this thing. I wanted something that was, first of all, easy and fast to deploy, but I also wanted a one-stop solution, something that would give me the ETL, the data warehouse, the analytics and visualization, so that I have one-stop shop. That way, I thought that my management, my administration would be low. I would not have to have too many skilled resources, because again, I had a very short time to do it. I was just joining the team, that was last year. I had a short time to do it. I didn't have that much of a budget. And I just needed to find out a way that I could do it fast, efficiently, and consistently. I would get consistent results. So we ended up taking the whole ETL component plus the data warehouse and the analytics and visualization. So the whole works. That's what we have.
Great. So previously it was quite a manual process for you to bring the data together and get it into a state where the business could use it. Are there things that you can do now that you weren't previously able to do?
Exactly. You see, previously what we were worried about was getting the data together. So making sure that the data is available, say, by 11 a.m. So a number of our resources would sometimes work late into the night or start very early in the morning, some of them at 4 a.m. to be able to struggle and put the data together. And then there's just the data, it will be a huge amount of data. But right now, because that whole ETL and putting, so it's already being done at night, by 3 a.m. everything is ready. So right now, what we're doing is going to the next level of making intelligent decisions out of that data. Now we can use it more intelligently. So what we can do right now is to make a bit more business sense out of the data and use that data a bit more intelligently to make decisions. So it's a bit different. Number two, we are now able to redeploy most of the other resources, because everything is being done automatically. Right now, consistency of the data is guaranteed. You see, before what was happening is that because it's being done by several users, several resources, If somebody is unwell or made a mistake somewhere or just did not do it on time, then you cannot assure of consistency. Accuracy also now is a question that we don't really worry about, because the system basically, once you test it and everything is running smoothly, unless something goes very wrong, which most cases it doesn't. So we are assured on accuracy of that data and actually security as well.
Great. So key benefits have been that you improve your data quality, but also giving you an opportunity to redeploy your resources to maybe do higher value activities than just keeping the lights on with the, sorry, no pun intended, the lights on in terms of the platform.
Exactly, but on the resources as well, because like I said, in one single country, we had like about 16 people. We've been able to reduce them to 2, in some cases 2 people, in some other areas 4. What that means is that there's a significant saving in terms of human resource. By redeploying them to other areas, some of course we had to have separation, but there's a significant saving in that particular area. But also time. I remember at one point we spent almost a week trying to pull data, because we're trying to pull data from other years to make some comparisons and some correlations, and that took us almost a week. Of course, by that time, the decisions that needs to be made have already been delayed. So right now, because everything is happening by 3 a.m., normally we have already done everything. And if we just at the top of the button, and we also send emails. Morning, there's an automated email that sends a summary of the reports to our senior executive teams. So a lot of efficiency has been, realized.
Great, that's great to hear. And Jeremiah, who within d.light is the kind of exec sponsor for the program? Because you are really looking at an enterprise data warehouse solution. Was it board involvement, or is it something that you ran as your own initiative?
At start, the executive sponsor was the CFO, because the CFO was the most concerned about the quality and consistency of the data, which is something that now looking back, I probably should have looked at other sponsors, but he was the one who was very concerned about making sure that his data, the information he's getting out, was consistent, was secure, was fast enough. So at that point, he was the main decision maker. So the other people, of course, are just rocked on me, but at the beginning, he was the main guy.
Okay. And are there any lessons learned that you're happy to share with the audience in terms of your experience?
Certainly. One of the main things, like I said, just mentioned about the executive sponsorship, because the executive sponsor at that point was the CFO. So most of the data sources and even the whatever we're building, I based a lot of it on the requirements of the CFO. Now, after the reports started coming out and people started seeing them and said, I could get a CEO saying, oh, what about me? And somebody from partnership said, hey, I don't seem to be seeing my reports, and so on and so forth. But we never quite gathered requirements from use. So if I'm to talk to myself at that point, I would have made it bigger, looked at all the business units and gathered the requirements at the very, very beginning. We could have basically planned the project differently. It would have probably taken a different route. Maybe it would have taken longer, or we could have, at that point, brought in a lot of these things together. But the other thing also, which I learned when we were doing this project, was could have taken some time to ensure that my data sources were clean, because a number of, we had quite a bit of challenges, and thankfully we got a lot of help from Oracle Consulting, who are the people who implemented for us. And they were able to help us ensure that our data sources were clean enough, the data was consistent, and that helped us also resolve those issues with those particular data sources. So that's another area we have looked at, but also looking at a bit more external data sources. So actually the next phase now we're going into is getting a lot more external data sources, because that then makes the information a bit richer. So at that point, we could have called it and that. Anyway, we are here now, and I've already gotten some time to bring in a lot more external data sources into the picture.
Yeah. And Jeremiah, is it fair to say it was the technology or the solution that, would have enabled you to be more confident or more ambitious in looking at a broader scope?
Precisely, yes. Because you see, now we have confidence. The kind of business we do, sometimes you may get lost in emotion and you may do things that do not make sense. But you see, with data, if you're, for example, you're moving to a certain region with a certain type of product, if you have the data backing it, then you're a bit more confident and a bit more aggressive when you have discussions with your sales teams. You can assure them that, hey, this is going to work because the data has proven it. So it gives us a bit more confidence, and I think it's something that is one of the major non-tangible, I could say, gains that we've had with the project.
No, that's really good to hear. So I think if I've heard correctly, your advice to yourself would have been you could be a little bit more ambitious in terms of the scope of the project, possibly opened it up earlier to other business units, but also the advice to the audience is, I think it's that age-old challenge of data quality. They really look at the data sources and look at the data quality early in the project. Have I missed any?
Yeah, you've just basically you nicely summarized, but yes, that's the kind of key lessons that I learned through the whole process. But I mention also that, I enjoy the fact that the approach we had with Oracle Consulting was a partnership kind of approach. Oracle did not treat us like a vendor, and I was very careful that I was not looking for a vendor in this particular project. I was looking for somebody who would look at the same picture that I'm looking at, the same future, and say, if we do this together, we are able to achieve that. But I didn't want somebody who would push the box and move away. And those kind of things that I'm saying, that like helping with the cleaning of the data and advising on what needs to be done and how this view would look like, is the kind of partnership I'm talking about. And it's really helps the businesses to move in a direction that is mutually beneficial to Oracle, beneficial to us at d.light.
Jeremiah, thank you very much. It's been great to hear from you, and thank you for sharing your experiences with the audience. So it's very much appreciated, and we look forward to working with you for the next phases of your d.light Modern Data Warehouse program. So, and thank you for all the work you're doing as well. I think it's very inspirational. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. Much appreciated.